Good morning, listeners. Thank you for joining me. Before we get started, we have to do the YouTubey things. Be sure to hit the like button on this video, the notification bell so that you know when I upload new videos. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. I am so excited at how, and welcome to the new listeners. Thank you. Thank you for the new subscribers. We are well on our way to that 500 subscriber mark, and we are getting close to the end of Vixen Diaries, and we will start hiding in hip hop. And I am going to actually start trying to pre-record some of those videos now so that I won't have to have you guys waiting so long in between the uploads. So, but without further ado, we will continue on in the Vixen Diaries with chapter 23, O Lang Syne, which means times long past. The year 2007 worked itself into my life with little fanfare, if any. As the clock struck 12, I was sound asleep in my bed, comfortable and confident that the past year had come and gone just the way it ought to. It may have started with the most devastating breakup of my life, but it ended serenely with me surrounded by all my accomplishments. And the most important of these is the happiness and security I have supplied for my young son. As he lay asleep in his bed, unaware of the festivities outside, I couldn't imagine a better person to ring in the new year with. Under all this peace and joy, however, anxiety burned in the pit of my stomach. Unlike last year's, this anxiety was of the healthy variety. Several weeks earlier, I had met a boxer named Antonio Tarver, and he had managed to sneak his way into my heart, no matter how hard I tried to keep him out. At first, everything about him seemed the opposite of what I wanted in my life. He's big and boisterous, with a boyish smile and an uproarious laugh. He's a professional athlete, which, as a rule, I steer clear of, based on past dating experiences with NFL, NBA, and other boxing professionals. Between their atrocious travel schedules, the women they tend to collect around the world while on the road, and their strip club off-season antics, being the lover, girlfriend, or wife of a professional athlete isn't all it appears to be. So when this tall, dark man jumped from a moving car to give me his phone number while I stood waiting for the valet at the Four Seasons Hotel to bring me my vehicle, I reluctantly pressed the digits into my phone, pretending to save it. He seemed very anxious and not as confident as he might be when meeting women. When I introduced myself, he told me he already knew who I was, and that's when the doubts filled my head. Was I to believe that he wanted to get to know me so we could have intellectual conversations over tea and scones, or should I just admit the truth? When a man walks up to a woman on the street with the desire to court her, he is doing so solely based on physical appearance and sexual drive. Once a man gets to know her, then he may become more attracted to her sense of humor, her ability to engage in intellectual banter, and the way she carries herself in the presence of friends and family. To get to that point takes time, but before that, each person in the relationship has to give the other a chance, which is something I was not interested in doing. As Antonio walked away with an aura of accomplishment, I smirked, knowing he would never hear from me again. I slid into my car, opened the hardtop, and cruised home, never to think of him again. That is, not until the following day. True to my usual routine, I found myself back at the Four Seasons, writing on my laptop in the same corner of the lounge I frequent daily with a glass of the establishment's finest Cabernet Sauvignon to accompany my flank steak and mashed sweet potatoes. As I sat there alone, I wondered about the hotel's boisterous guest who risked life and limb jumping out of a moving vehicle to capture my attention. Was he in the building? Could I be so close to him and not at least find out what I'd be missing if I continued to ignore him completely? Though I didn't save his phone number in my phone, oddly enough, it was stored in my newly acquired photographic memory, which I must have picked up at the moment he gave me his number. Reluctant but curious, I decided to call. His deep voice and southern drawl were comforting to my ear as he answered the phone. Hello? Hey, it's Corinne. Oh, hey. Look, just wanted to let you know I'm back at the fort and you can join me while I work and eat if you like. Well, I'm out having breakfast right now, but I'm going to finish up and come right to you. That's fine. I tried to remain stern and unaffected by him, but there was something exciting and a bit frightening about meeting him. As a rule, I very rarely allow new people in my life. I live in my social cocoon where everything and everyone is the same all the time. I feel safer that way, and my chances of being hurt are greatly minimized by my routine. In the event that I do decide to let someone new into my life, I make a predetermined date by which that person will have to go. As with the boy toy, in my heart, I knew I couldn't carry him into the new year. This time of year is more permanent, is for more permanent people. And with his wild late nights ways, I knew he'd only last a season. I have a life full of rules and restrictions for myself and those around me, and though they are in place for my own good, the effects of these rules aren't always in my best interest. I know that I am missing a lot of life because I am afraid of being hurt and disappointed again. As much as I attest to what a brave woman I am, inside I am still a very scared little girl who is, in many ways, broken and trying very desperately to heal. During the healing process, another wound would be badly damaged, and I find myself protecting my heart with vigor and valor, stubbornness and stupidity. I know that with such armor around my heart, I could very well miss out on someone wonderful. And for the past year, I have decided that's okay. I have decided to do without, which means that Antonio cannot become a part of my life. Absolutely, unequivocally, no. Antonio made his way to my table at the Four Seasons, sat down, and started asking questions, some personal, some professional, in an attempt to get to know me better. I was reluctant to answer any of his inquiries, reluctant to let him in, even just a little bit. But there was something about his eyes and face that soothed me. There was a boyish charm behind this man nearly in his 40s. His eyes danced and his smile seemed sincere and pure. Once we started talking, I was surprised to find how natural the conversation was, as well as stimulating to all my senses. I liked his way of dress, the way he swaggered into the room, his cologne. Everything about Antonio was enticing, that I found myself drawn to him, even though I tried hard not to show it. After my lunch, Antonio escorted me to the mall after insisting that he needed a new pair of sneakers for his workout. The ride to the Beverly Center was short, and we found ourselves strolling through Macy's men's store, then into the elevator. Within his first hour of meeting me, he was met with one of my phobias. Oh, because I'm claustrophobic, I have a difficult time in elevators, especially those in malls and parking structures. Many times I will go out of my way to find an escalator or stairs in order to reach my destination without having an anxiety attack. And as with most things in my life, there is a rule to the phobia. If I have absolutely, if I have, if I absolutely have to get into an elevator, I prefer to ride in one with just a few people in it. Even then, I'm counting the seconds until I can escape. Antonio found my affliction strange, but from the moment we stepped into the elevator, he tried to ease my silly phobia by taking me into his arms, burying my head into his chest, and rubbing my back and telling me it would all be okay. Though the ride was short, this feeling of intimacy stayed with me, and I fought it all the way. He seemed so forward as he tried to hold my hand while making our way through the mall. I pushed him away when he tried to kiss my face and shot down all his other advances. I didn't want him to think. I didn't want to let him in, at least not then. The truth was, however, that I knew I would, but I was determined to make him work harder than he had ever worked for anything in his life. I dropped him off at the Four Seasons, promising to see him later that evening. I was outwardly unaffected, but on the inside my thoughts danced with the unknown. Who was Antonio, and how would he fit in my life? Was I really breaking my own rules and agreeing to let him in? There are so many things I do not know, but by head or by heart, but I am eager to learn. Many times, learning means taking chances, and I was about to make a new rule for the new year: enjoy my life without fear, knowing that everything happens for a reason and nothing is allowed without God's will. The worst days of my life are over, and I have grown enough to know how to protect my heart. Often I think of my mother, and I am reminded of what I do not want to be. I don't want to go through my life telling everyone how much I don't need them, that I am all right by myself. The truth is, everyone needs someone sometimes, and independence can easily turn into loneliness and regret. Unlike my mother, I refuse to enter my middle age alone, looking back and wondering what could have been. There is a thin line between good old-fashioned courting and pushing a good man away. There is a dance to be had, and even a vigorous tango there to give and take, and finally, submission. I realized that I was fighting visions of old ghosts that only existed in my mind. If I believed that confessions was my purging, I truly have to let it all go, give it all back to the universe, and stop using it as an excuse. For the past year, I had used Bill as an excuse not to move on. And though, since the moment we met and fell in love, I have always been sure that he is the one I want to spend the rest of my life with, I have been able to care for others while Bill and I regroup and return to the core of our relationship. Antonio, in a very short time, seemed to become a wonderful part of my life, and Bill seemed just a memory. Antonio had to leave Los Angeles just a few days after we met and headed back to his hometown of Tampa, Florida. After he called me several times a day, we talked for hours on end. I was still fighting my impulses and he was still trying to conquer those walls around my heart. He was kind, and I was brutal. I would start fights over the most mundane things. Why didn't you call me back? Why are you always out with your friends? Why would you take some girl to the movies? None of this mattered, but it was self-sabotage. If I could make him hate me, he would go away. That was my intent. But finding a way to make him back off would prove impossible. Every time I would fight and try to wiggle my way out of his emotional hold, he would respond with kindness and understanding, with patience and love. I couldn't stand it. He was winning the war, and all my antics wouldn't scare him away. He was the first person I spoke to in the morning and the last voice I would hear at night. He filled my days with witty banter and laughter. I looked forward to his calls and was sure never to miss one. His name went from Antonio to baby, and he returned the gesture. The stranger was becoming comfortable, and soon we made plans to meet again. At 6 in the morning in Tampa on January 2nd, 2007, I would begin my new year with him in his new home with my son. This trip was more than a visit with a lover. It was my future and my past coming together. It was my life coming full circle as the new me touched down in the old place where my life had gone from bad to worse. This is where I came when, at the age of 10, my mother moved us from St. Thomas to a small suburb of Tampa. At a time in my life when everything was brand new, it was strange to think of going back to the place for the first time in 13 years. I imagined what it would be like to go back to the apartment complex my mother and I moved into when we first arrived in Tampa during the winter freeze of 1987. This is the place I went home to after being kidnapped and raped at the age of 13. I was beaten by my mother as I stepped through the doorway. In this same place, I sat and looked out the window at the playground, listening to Patti LaBelle's "Somebody Loves You" and wondering who that someone was, knowing that I'd never be a child again. That was the same place where I spent a lonely Christmas in my room with no gifts under the tree, listening to my sisters tear away at theirs. In a strange twist of fate, my mother had recently just moved back to the same apartment complex. She was moving backwards and I in the opposite direction. Here we were, right back where we started, except that one of us was very, very different. This is where my son would play as he visited his grandmother, unaware of the pain that still resides within those walls for his mother. He was looking forward to going, and I was dreading the trip. This vacation would be my son's first airplane ride since he was a year old and too young to remember. No matter what happened, it was up to me to remain calm despite what I may feel about my past and life in Tampa. To see the look on his face as the plane took off from Los Angeles International, I was so very happy that he was so excited. I felt like a good mother, and the look on his face assured me that to him I was doing the right thing. He was allowed inside the cockpit once the plane landed, where we took photos of him in the pilot seat. Between his first airplane ride and my jitters about being alone with Antonio, Naeem and I both vibrating with excitement when we stepped off the plane in Tampa. Antonio was waiting when we arrived, just as tall, just as dark, and just as handsome as I remembered. All of a sudden, it was as if I'd known him for years. I felt at home as I walked toward him, and I knew I'd be safe, just as I had been when he comforted me in the elevator weeks before. I was going to take a chance on love again. I was going to let my guard down and give Antonio things I hardly given to any man: respect, consideration, and the benefit of the doubt. Hell, I may even submit once in a while, put my sword down, and give up the ghost. Well, if you've listened this far, thank you for listening. Please be sure to hit the like button on your way out, the notification bell so that you know when I upload new videos. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. We are getting close. I'd like to have do something once we get to the 500 marker. Do you think just starting, going ahead and uploading, starting hiding in hip hop, would that be enough? Let me know in the comments section. And please, thank you so much for all your kind words.